Hello, thank you for stopping by Kyle's blog. This is Kyle's 86th video. In this video here, I'm going to be in the book of 2 Corinthians, chapter 10, beginning with verse 3. And in this video, I'm going to speak on letting God be the judge. You know, a lot of times in our walk, in our Christian walk, a lot of us point fingers a lot of times at people, whether they be saved or unsaved, whether they be spiritually immature or whether they just simply be still in the fallen nature, unsaved. And we judge them and we look at them according to our own standards. And if there's anything that we have to keep in mind, it's that not everybody may be at the spiritual level that we're at, especially if they're unsaved. But even if they're saved, they still may not completely have an understanding of the ways of God yet. They're not always at the same level that we're at, and they may be very immature in certain godly areas. And you know, the thing is, sometimes God may have us to speak to that younger Christian about certain issues, but you know what? At other times, God may not have us to speak to the other Christian in those certain issues, but God may be the one who has to work their hearts and bring them to the place of understanding to help them be more spiritually mature in the area. A lot of times, though, we like to take upon ourselves the voice of God and speak out certain, don't do that because that's wrong, or you shouldn't dress that way, you shouldn't live that way. And a lot of times we may destroy what God is doing in a person's life. We may say it's for me to help this person, when really it might be for us to shut our mouths and love that person and let God be the one who cleans them. 2 Corinthians 10 Verse 3, and this is so important because this shows that even, let's say, if we're dealing with somebody who may be against what we are saying, it shows really the place and the stance that we're to take. It's not for us to argue to the point that we're trying to force somebody to believe something about God. That will never work, especially if they're unsaved and in the fallen nature. They don't understand. They're still in the old nature, the old man who lives their ways in sin and flesh and the things of this world. 2 Corinthians 10 verse 3 says, "For though we, those of us who are saved, walk in the flesh, we do not war after the flesh." We don't combat with our hands or with our mouths against people to bring them down and such. Verse 4, "For the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty through God to the pulling down of strongholds." What strongholds are they speaking of? In the heavenlies, the spiritual strongholds. Verse 5, "Casting down imaginations, and every high thing that exalteth itself against the knowledge of God, and bringing into captivity every thought to the obedience of Christ." On the certain stances that we may take, God may have us to say nothing about certain issues in people's lives. We have to stay in prayer over that person and let God be the one to come in. We may, to somebody who's unsaved, we may share the words of Jesus Christ, the great life. And that person might say, "Okay, I thank you for sharing that with me," and walk on and not receive Jesus. It's not for us to keep harassing that person. We may have done our part, and now it's up to God to do the rest. And when God does his part, that person still might say no in their hearts. That's their choice. God cannot really force anyone to do anything. He can, but he doesn't. And to those who are saved and maybe a bit spiritually immature more than us, it's not for us to constantly point and judge at them because they're not up to our standards. But let God be the one to even clean them and help exalt them. At times, certainly, are we to encourage them? Yes. Are we to help them along the way as an older brother in Jesus Christ or sister? Yes. We are to build them up. But do it for the sake of encouraging. Do it for the sake out of love. And let God lead you in doing it, because he might not have you even say anything. Search your hearts, because he might have you to speak and warn and rebuke. There's times for that. But he might have you not say a word and simply love them and accept them. And he will come in through your prayers and love for that brother or sister. And he will build them up to the place that they will be spiritually mature and strong and founded on Jesus Christ. Let God be the judge. I thank you for stopping by Kyle's blog. God bless. Have a great week.